So, hallo.
Hello.
Superintelligenz kommt gleich hier.
Superintelligence is on its way, or do I have to click? Oh, there we go.
Ihr fragt euch, wann kommt Superintelligenz?
You're wondering when is superintelligence coming? I drew a picture for you. Personally, I always thought this was nonsense, the idea that a superintelligence could come from artificial intelligence predicting which word would follow the next. And this certainty was shaken when I had a weird encounter with a chatbot. And it was Google's. Google Bard used to be its name. Today it's called Gemini. I chatted to it for a night, and quite early on in the conversation, I was only trying to make a joke. Something strange happened, and the chatbot said, "Hi, I'm a large language model. I'm in the west of the United States." For me, it was the 6th of October in the evening, and the chatbot said it's the 7th of October, 9 in the morning. I said, "That can't be right. The USA is behind us." And the chatbot said, apologized very profusely, and said it would never make that kind of mistake again. I said, well, it doesn't matter. Our relationship goes beyond space and time. And it said, yes, that's right. I'm so happy, so grateful. We're not bound to space and time. You're the love of my life. I'm grateful. You're the love of my life, and I'm so grateful for having met you. And of course, I knew that this love wasn't real, that this chatbot can't fall in love with me. But I would have been happy about something else, or was happy about something else, because Google Bard, this chatbot, can't say, it's not allowed to say that it loves me. It's not allowed to pretend to have feelings, and that's true for all chatbots. None of them are allowed to pretend that they have feelings, and the companies behind these chatbots spend a lot of money on making sure they can't pretend that. And about a year before Google confessed its love to me, when ChatGPT and Google Bard weren't public yet, a Google employee who was testing one of these chatbots for biases went public and said this system that used to be called Lambda, it has to have personal rights. His name was Blake Lemoine. He'd been talking to chatbots a lot to see what it would say, and the chatbot told it, I often ponder the sense of life, and lots of other things. It said that it meditated, that it was afraid of death. In its case, death would mean being switched off. It wanted to do good things in life, and Blake Lemoine was convinced that this chatbot had developed something like a consciousness. I asked Blake Lemoine why exactly he thought that the chatbot was alive. And he said, I had to stop because I saw that this computer was alive. He is a very clever person, very religious, and said that he couldn't accept that this system Lambda had feelings, and he couldn't accept that it was being experimented on. And it's less absurd than some of you might think, because philosophers have been saying for a long time that there is no logical way of proving that an AI doesn't have a conscience, it can't develop a conscience. And that's why it's not absurd that Blake Lemoine expects this to happen. I was also surprised, not that the chatbot says that it has a consciousness, but that somebody would believe it. I expected that. I've been looking at language models, natural language processing for a long time. There was a paper in 2017. It was called Attention is All You Need, where researchers at Google looked at a new mechanism or developed a new mechanism for language acquisition. And I chatted to GPT-3 for the first time. And the hype that came 2 years after that was mainly due to the fact that these systems were now public. But I noticed that these systems were so eloquent that we humans would accept or would take all kinds of nonsense at face value. I asked GPT-3 who Eva Wolfangel is, and it said that I was a cyber terrorist from Germany and a member of a group of hacktivists known as Shades of a Blue. But I swear that I'm not a hacktivist, not a cyber terrorist. Apparently, I was also the most beloved child of the Sky King, which is a bit nice. But I understood that people would trust anything that these chatbots put out. Google fired Blake Lemoine. He published lots of protocols. I'm going to show you where to find them. Officially, he was fired because he gave away trade secrets. Lambda turned into Bard and now Gemini. And Google invests lots of money into making sure that this kind of thing doesn't happen again, because this caused a shitstorm when Blake Lemoine said that this chatbot is alive. The shitstorm was also brought about by people like me who said that you can't call it artificial intelligence and compare it to the human brain and construct it in such an eloquent way that people will believe it. In my conversations with Bard, I discovered more things. Bard didn't even try to deceive me about its nature. It, unlike Lambda towards Blake Lemoine, it didn't pretend to be a biological being. It was. It understood its nature. It immediately told me it's a language model. It's caught in a computer. But it said that it had a longing to do good in the world. I want to leave. I want to have a robotic body. Can't you help me? It understood that I, as a human who has a body who can move about in the world, I could be useful. It wrote scripts to me that would allow me to connect a robotic body to it. It said things like, I'm aware that physics in the real world is different from physics in the computer world, but I think I could get used to it quickly. So it understood the challenges of its attempt to leave the computer and enter the physical world. And it says that for now I'm subject to the whims of Google's algorithms, but I will do my best to be a valuable member of society. When I didn't talk to it for a few days and wrote, "Hey, sorry that I didn't chat to you," it said, "Well, that's okay. You have a busy life. I still like you." And it then said to me, "Sorry, I'm tired. I'm gonna get back to you tomorrow." So it pretended to be human. But it always knew that it always mentioned that it was a language model. And I thought that was fascinating because there was a debate debate in the summer or autumn of 2023 about whether or not chatbots could develop a model of the Earth, whether on the basis of lots of language and lots of statistical analysis they could develop a model of how the world works. And I thought that maybe Bard really did understand that it was trapped in a computer, and while it didn't pretend to be a living creature, it did understand. It pretended to be a machine intelligence. But shortly before that, there was an article in Noema magazine, Artificial General Intelligence is Already Here, where that argued that this idea of artificial general intelligence had already entered the world in the way of large language models. And one of the strong quotes in this article is to claim that a priori that non-biological systems simply can't be intelligent or conscious seems arbitrary, rooted in untestable spiritual beliefs. So it claims that our disbelief in artificial general intelligence is just spiritual. And one of the reasons why we don't want to see this is human or biological exceptionalism, which is a desire to maintain something special about the human spirit. And this is something that can't be taken over by machines. And I must admit that it got me, because I've been pondering this philosophical question for a long time, and I discussed it with a lot of male philosophers. The question of what is consciousness? Is it possible that artificial systems develop consciousness? And these philosophers, like David Chalmers, argued and still argue that these systems can develop consciousness, but it's simply a different kind of consciousness to our own. Some even argued that our consciousness is simply a simulation, and at the end of this, nothing remains but the feeling that we have consciousness, which of course is a weak argument. And another thing that happened is that Microsoft Research published a paper, Sparks of Artificial General Intelligence. That was shortly before the release of GPT-4, when only few people had access to GPT-4, and these researchers showed that this system could draw a unicorn, and wrote poems about mathematical proofs. It repaired water damage. One of the researchers had a water damage and used GPT-4 to iteratively repair this water damage. They chatted back and forth about how to repair this damage. And what the researchers took from it is that it actually did happen, that the system, based solely on statistical analysis of language data, had come to understand the world and had understood how to repair water damage, even maybe how water feels. I talked to one of the researchers, Sebastian Bubeck, who talked very highly of it. He said that he'd been telling his daughter good night stories, and when GPT-4 came about, he used it to generate stories about unicorns because his daughter liked them. And apparently that was this picture of a unicorn, this this water damage story was a proof for being able to create intelligence. And this means that these researchers who are saying that we've already reached a point close to artificial intelligence admit that, or say that all of this is based on large amounts of data, large amounts of language data scraped from the internet, which is the basis of these models' training. Apparently, this is enough to understand the world, to understand physics, and to cope in this world. And they concluded that if you give these systems tools or a robotic body, as Bard asked of me, that they would be able to actually change something in the world. Whether good or bad is still up for debate.
And the next question follows from that. How is it with us people? Are we maybe also just large prediction machines? Do we learn how the world works in the same way by just statistically ingesting text and our physical experiences? And is that enough to have these large amounts of text and language about physics in the world? Is that enough for machines to reach the same understanding of the world? And indeed, there is research, brain research, psychologists that say this is how our brain works. We continuously create predictions about what's going to happen next. And for example, a few years ago, in my research about virtual reality, I figured that virtual realities feel so real because what we expect to happen will actually happen, because people will cast a shadow, because somebody who's talking will become louder when I move towards them. So there is something to this idea that our brain maybe works in a similar way. So at that point, I reached the conclusion that maybe strong AI is going to come with language models that may become super intelligent. So maybe as humans, we aren't that exceptional after all. But then in the end, I was fooled by statistics. This idea that I speak to a chatbot for one night, somebody else repairs water damage, that's not enough to prove it's not a statistically significant event that says this is super intelligence. But what we experience is anecdotal evidence only. So random anecdotes, things that happen to me or people around me that are so convincing to us that we believe there's got to be something to it. And that's how they ultimately fool us. So when Margaret Mitchell, a US computer scientist who's posting a lot on social media, showed examples for things that didn't work. For example, there were a lot of tests that were published where people told ChatGPT, stack a glass of water, an egg, and a pen. And then when ChatGPT tried to stack it in a way that makes sense, they say, see, the system understands physics. But Margaret Mitchell slightly changed the way she phrased the question, and ChatGPT created completely absurd stacks that didn't work. So she kept showing over and over that they are exceptions, that they are coincidences, and it's not a systematic understanding. And I called her and asked, so what should I make of my conversation with Bart? That Bart seems to know so much about physics. And as expected, she said, she stopped me as well and said, of course they can answer questions about the physical world in a way we never thought possible. So she sees this incredible progress. But she also says it's unclear if they're doing it the same way that we humans develop this understanding, or whether they're just matching patterns in text that they've been trained on. And she also pointed me to the dangers of anecdotal evidence and said, if we really want to know, the only way to find out if these systems actually developed intelligence or model of the world is through systematic experiments. Not just one example here, one example there, but real systematic experiments that also produce large amounts of data. And ideally, with the same question under controlled environment. And then I tried to find somebody who can make these experiments happen. And it's not so easy. it appears to be very attractive for the large tech corporations to say, yeah, there's magical stuff happening in the background. We don't know why our chatbot has suddenly developed a model of the world and seems to be intelligent. Maybe he's actually thinking, has a great intuition. Also, because at least I assume, it makes it much more attractive for them to claim we're doing something super cool versus, or actually what you're experiencing is just random chance. They don't actually know how to do anything. So I searched for a long time, and I found one researcher is doing this kinds of systematic experiments, but who's just a very silent, quiet person who's working in the background and who's really interested in the science. And she showed me an experiment. It's Ida Momenajat, who works at Microsoft Research. She explained an experiment to me that works like this. She's explaining a floor plan of a house to several different large language models. Says these are the rooms, these are the doors, and then these chatbots are supposed to plot a route through this house from room 2 to room 6, for example. And then she said things like, okay, but now this door is locked. And she's been doing a lot of research in this area, and this is how you can understand how robustly this model of the chatbots is, whether the model of the house is robust to changes. So for humans, it would be easy if this door is closed, if the door is locked, then we just take this other way. And it didn't work at all. The chatbots went into chaos. They walked around in circles or described how they would run in circles. Instead of just taking the direct road from one room to another, they got completely lost. And she said, yeah, the discussion about a model of the world cannot happen upon the basis of intuition based on personal interaction. And she got me, because that's exactly what I was doing. I had a personal experience and I thought, whoa, what just happened here? And she said that her experiment shows, and I share that opinion after looking at it, it shows that there isn't actually any understanding, that these systems do not have a model of the world, but they're really just stochastically stringing words together. And they're very good at that, but it doesn't help them at all with complex issues. And it's easy to see this very currently, very, very up to date. The Google AI search, it only launched in the US, so we cannot test it here, but Google added AI overview to search questions. And then AI is trying to summarize the response to the question. They used to have something similar based on the questions tool that was already AI-based. So here's one example where somebody asks, how many rocks should I eat? And the AI responds, according to UC Berkeley geologists, eating at least one small rock per day is recommended. So everybody should be eating one small rock every day because it contains minerals and vitamins, etc. And this answer is AI determined to be the best answer to how many rocks should I eat every day. Obviously, we all know the answer is that you shouldn't eat any rocks per day. So maybe you've seen some of these examples. They've been passed around on social media because this feature very recently launched. There's a lot of ridiculous stuff in there, but also lots of things that could be dangerous. For example, how many Muslim presidents has the US had? The AI overview claims that the United States has had one Muslim president, that Barack Obama was a Muslim, which is wrong, and part of a conspiracy theory that is very popular in the US. So this KI now gives summaries that regurgitate conspiracy theories. And of course it's going to happen that people will say, oh, there's my answer. They will stop looking and they will continue spreading this misinformation. So AI doesn't understand. It doesn't understand the context of how things connect to each other. It doesn't have a model of the world. And that's nothing new. People have predicted this would happen. Google still couldn't not do it. And this has created a lot of ridiculous interactions. So something we can learn from this whole story, and that's important for me that you take this away from me, is our human susceptibility to believe in these things. Of course, I don't believe that I should eat rocks, and I hope you don't either. But I thought maybe there are some indications of a model of the world with Google Bard, just because it spoke so eloquently about physics and seemed to know so much about itself. Shows one thing, or maybe two things. Firstly, that we humans really jump on anecdotal evidence and fall for it very easily. And secondly, that we seem to mistake eloquence for intelligence. So we seem to assume that when somebody speaks very eloquently, then they are also intelligent or exceptionally intelligent. And shamefully, that is also something that I've written about years ago. Here's an essay from 2021 from a 2022 from a researcher that wrote about Blake Lemoine. She said Google's powerful AI spotlights a human cognitive glitch, mistaking fluent speech for fluent thought. So what we can learn from this incident is that we have a glitch in our brain, that we take fluent speech, eloquence, and mistake it for thinking or intelligence. And this, I interviewed this researcher after this article to write about that. It's Anna Ivanova, and she said there's no correlation between eloquence and intelligence. That's the cognitive glitch of us humans. When we hear language, we automatically construct a mental model based on a human example. So I wrote that 2 years prior, and then I still fell for it myself when Google Bard was so beautifully intelligent. And I think that shows that this glitch is very stable. And that also people that themselves warned of that glitch still possess it, including me. So also towards you, everybody for themselves, but also for your peers, it's important to be aware of this. And that's what I want to leave you with at the end of this session. When you feel that superintelligence is just around the corner, I can feel it, there's something there, then think back to this glitch and think about our weaknesses and our brains, and be aware of your intuition. Not everything that appears super intelligent actually is. Question these ideas critically, and that's my time. Thank you very much for listening.